Discover the incredible journey of the woman in 12F who heartwarmingly saved a billionaire's life. Emily had always put others before herself. In her modest apartment in a bustling neighborhood, she was the first to lend a hand to the elderly neighbor next door, who couldn't mow their lawn anymore. She had learned this spirit from her father, a Vietnam vet, who taught her the importance of supporting the underdog. Every dollar she earned from her 2 jobs was not just for her teenage son, Jake. It was a tribute to her father's promise. As they boarded the flight for a family wedding one sunny afternoon, Emily noticed rich, polished personalities scattered around them. Money dripped from their designer outfits. Jake, wearing his favorite faded t-shirt, looked around, an uneasy expression clouding his youthful face. They took their seats and Emily settled in, her mind bubbling with excitement about reconnecting with family. Suddenly, a gasp rippled through the cabin. In 12F, an elderly billionaire, Richard, struggled to breathe, his face turning a ghastly shade of blue. Panic swept through the aisle like wildfire. Instinct kicked in. Emily leapt from her seat, heart racing. She had taken that CPR class years ago, but memories rushed back in a flood. With a determined heart, she pushed her way forward, fingers trembling as she reached the millionaire. "Stand back," she exclaimed, positioning him carefully. She did what she could. With each thrust, time felt distorted, minutes stretched into an eternity. She could feel the eyes of the passengers, the weight of their judgment hanging heavy. And then with a final heave, he coughed out the food lodged in his throat, gasping for precious air. Relief flooded her as Richard took deep breaths, life returning to his eyes. The cabin erupted in applause, but for Emily, everything was still. Her heart thudded in her chest, and a swell of gratitude rushed through her veins. Slowly, they formed a bond that transcended their worlds. Richard's sincere expressions of appreciation became part of her daily routine. Their connection offered something new amidst her unyielding grind. But while Emily navigated this newfound friendship, life became even tougher. Bills stacked higher, jobs became more unpredictable, and the constant tension with Jake brewed as he watched their struggles unfold publicly. He felt lost and ashamed, especially as his mother's actions attracted social media attention that painted an image he wasn't comfortable with. "Why do you have to make such a big deal out of everything?" he yelled one evening, frustration bubbling over. "This is all embarrassing." Power struggles fleshed out hidden fears, their bond cracked under the weight of unspoken tensions. Meanwhile, even Richard wrestled with feelings of loneliness that came despite a bank account that should have made him feel fulfilled. As Emily was invited to more of Richard's lavish events, she found herself stuck, pulled between her ideals and a life that felt increasingly glamorous yet foreign. The community she once served with love now looked questioningly at her. Was she a hero or simply someone lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time? With each invitation, the stakes rose, her integrity under scrutiny. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Then came a night filled with glimmering chandeliers and perfectly polished silverware, an event that Richard insisted she attend. As she surveyed the crowd, the conversations dipped and surged around her, with people questioning her worth. Can she even fit in? And look at her, the charity case drifted like whispers in the AIRT that moment. As Richard approached her anxious frame, ready to offer support, the room shifted. A sudden emergency unfolded, one that could drive a wedge further into their fragile friendship. As eyes turned on her yet again, Emily knew she stood at a pivotal crossroads. Would she uphold her values or yield to the glittering world tempting her away from her roots? Would she keep her promise to her father and safeguard Jake's dignity against this dazzling allure? All these questions weighed on her heart as the stakes of her life reached a boiling point, leaving her and the reader on the brink of revelation. Emily's heart raced as she absorbed the chaos unfolding in the ballroom. A young waitress had collapsed near the bar, clutching her chest, her face twisted in alarm. The chatter of the crowd morphed into an urgent buzz as people moved aside, eyes wide with shock. It felt almost surreal. Here she was, a beacon of hope one moment, And now she was thrust back into the role she knew best. Without a second thought, she rushed forward, instinctively pulling on memories of her CPR training. "Clear the area," she shouted, reliving the pulse of adrenaline that had ignited her just days prior. In a haze of movement, she knelt beside the girl, whose eyes were squeezed shut in pain. The young woman's skin was pale, a stark contrast to the colorful decor surrounding them. Emily could feel her heart pounding in her chest. This was no longer about appearances or social hierarchies, it was about life and death. "Someone call 911, she commanded, her voice steady despite the chaos stirring around her. As another bystander grabbed their phone, Emily focused on the young woman before her. "Hey, stay with me," she said softly, holding the girl's hand tightly. "You're going to be okay. Just keep breathing." As she began performing chest compressions, the world around her faded. She was no longer in a room full of opulence or judgment. Instead, all that mattered was the rhythm of the girl's heart against her hands. Pulses she thought life being fought for in those critical moments. Richard arrived at her side, kneeling down and offering assistance. His expression matched Emily's intensity as he worked calmly to count compressions along with her. There was a shared purpose, a silent understanding that in this moment, they were simply two people trying to save another. But as he moved to clear the girl's airway, Emily caught a glimpse of the crowd. They were watching, whispering, murmuring. The spectacle of it all danced on the edge of her awareness, just as they resumed the compressions, but their synchronized efforts were interrupted. The young woman gasped for breath, her eyes fluttering open in alarm. Relief flooded through Emily and she leaned closer. "You did great. Just keep breathing slowly." Moments later, the paramedics arrived, pushing through the throngs of onlookers. As Emily stepped aside, she glanced back at Richard, whose relief mirrored her own. "You saved her," he said softly, admiration lacing his words. Before she could respond, the whispers of the crowd swelled. Back at the edge of the ballroom, Jake had stepped in, his face a mixture of astonishment and disbelief. Seeing his mom, the woman they ridiculed, at the center of this moment shifted something within him. Perhaps for once she wasn't just the chicken soup maker or the lawn mower. She was a woman who stepped up when it counted. Yet that budding pride didn't quell his insecurities. The crowd had morphed again, and once again, he sensed their judgment. Would he ever escape the echoes of their voices? Or did his mother's bravery simply put a spotlight on his own shortcomings? Emily felt their eyes now more than ever, but deep down, she was relieved to know that she stood for something greater. Her heart thudded heavily. She was battling against the glitter, but her spirit thrived. As the paramedics took over, Richard caught her gaze, a flicker of something deeper lingering behind his eyes. Was there an unspoken connection forming beneath the noise? Amid all this chaos, would they be able to forge a path that intertwined their worlds, overcoming the hurdles that threatened to drive them apart? She didn't have the answers just yet. And as the excitement around them died down, another thought raced through her mind. Was this event merely the beginning of a series of revelations that would change everything for both her and Jake? Her resolve grew stronger. The fight for their identities had only just begun, and she was not about to retreat. But as she turned to face Richard, a new worry slipped into her thoughts. What was she going to do when confronted with the unexpected weight of his world and her own past colliding with her future? Emily took a moment to catch her breath as the paramedics took over the scene. The earlier chaos had subsided, but the aftermath felt heavy in the stillness of the ballroom. She glanced at Jake, who was still standing near the edge, his expression caught between admiration and confusion. She could sense his turmoil, the lingering shadows of doubt clouding his pride. "Jake," she called, waving him over. He hesitated but finally moved toward her, his footsteps hesitant, almost as if he were walking through thick mud. "Mom, that was amazing," he finally said, though his voice lacked conviction. Emily noticed how he looked up at her with a mixture of respect and uncertainty, a little boy still trapped in the world of judgment. "Just doing what anyone would do," she said, trying to keep her tone light, though inside she brimmed with emotion. This was a moment to share, to celebrate the bond of mother and son. But Jake was already lost in thought, his gaze drifting to the crowd. "But didn't you see how they looked at us?" He was biting his lip, glancing around as if hoping to extract some strength from the people who had once heckled them. "I thought you didn't care what they thought?" I don't, Jake, she replied, taking a step closer, lowering her voice. Not really. But I can't change their perceptions and I can't change the past. Today was about saving a life, not worrying about what others think. He looked up at her, his eyes searching hers for reassurance. Emily's heart ached to see the conflict inside him. This wasn't just about her own battles. It was about the shadows they both felt pressing down on them. Richard rose from the floor, composed but visibly drained. He caught Emily's eye again, and she could see the admiration in his expression mixed with something else, perhaps a flicker of understanding about their intertwined fates. That was incredible, Emily, Richard said, stepping forward. You were so calm under pressure. It's not easy to do that. Just a little training goes a long way, she replied with a smile that felt foreign, yet comforting. I'm glad I could help. The air between the three of them felt charged with something newfound, something that transcended the earlier chaos. Can I ask you something? Richard said, shifting gears. After all of this, what's next for you and your son? Emily hesitated, knowing that her decision could affect not just her, but Jake too. She had fought so long to prove her worth, to escape the judgment she faced. And now, having braved the storm today, perhaps change was what they both needed. I think it's time for us to embrace new beginnings, she replied carefully, her eyes drifting towards Jake, who was watching intently. Like moving forward with life? Jake mumbled, hesitant but curious. Exactly, Emily said, feeling a warmth spread through her. Life is full of unexpected moments, after all, and it's about how we respond to them that matter most. Richard nodded, as if making a silent promise to help them uncover what lay ahead. But the uncertainty about their path lingered, like the dim lights overhead. As the crowd slowly began to disperse, and whispers turned to laughs, Emily felt a determination building within her. What would be the first step? Could she set aside the doubts brought by societal expectations? The air felt electric with possibilities. Jake's expression was still conflicted, but she could sense a shift. Would he see this as an opportunity to reshape his own narrative? Suddenly, a loud crash echoed in the distance, stirring up her thoughts yet again. What had she missed? Was this a cue from fate? Or merely an accident in the busy life surrounding them? Emily tightened her grip on Jake's shoulder, an anchor in the uncertainties of tomorrow. The journey had shifted into high gear. And in that moment, she understood what came next could change everything. But what if change was something they both needed to fully embrace? Jake flinched at the sound, eyes darting to the entrance of the ballroom where the crash had happened. It felt disorienting. The abruptness of the noise juxtaposed against the melange of relief and admiration that had just enveloped them. Emily, still holding on to Jake's shoulder, turned to see a figure stumbling in, breathless and frantic. What happened? She asked, but the words felt like they were lost in the chaos around them. There's been an accident. The newcomer shouted, her voice trembling. Someone fell in the kitchen. Panic rippled through the crowd as people began to whisper among themselves, concern washing over their faces. All of a sudden, Emily's instincts kicked in once more. The air was thick with anxiety as the guests buzzed like bees in a disturbed hive. She glanced at Richard, who had shifted into a focused demeanor, and she could feel Jake's hand tightening around hers. Here we go again, Emily murmured almost to herself. Mom, wait. Jake protested, but she was already moving. Stay close, she instructed, though she knew she wouldn't let him drift far from her side. They rushed toward the chaos unfolding at the back of the ballroom, where the clatter of dishes and muffled voices grew louder, heralding the urgency of the moment. That as they approached, Emily could see a small crowd gathered, eyes wide and voices raised. A kitchen staff member was on the floor, surrounded by concerned colleagues. Emily's heart raced, a familiar rhythm of purpose returning. She pushed through the gathering, calling out to the team. Move aside, please, she commanded, her voice steady despite her rising pulse. Eyes turned wide with surprise at the contact she had made earlier, but it was the distressed moans from the floor that pulled them back into the situation at hand. She knelt down beside the fallen worker, a young woman whose face was pale, and Emily could see the faint traces of fear in her eyes. What happened? Emily asked, trying to assess the situation. I tripped, the girl stammered, gripping her ankle with visible pain etched on her face. I think I might have sprained it. Emily's hands moved into action instinctively. All right, just take deep breaths. I'm going to help you. She assessed the injury, grounding herself in the knowledge she had acquired in her first aid training, feeling the weight of the earlier encounter with the man who collapsed still fresh in her memory. In the midst of the bustling crowd, she felt Jake beside her, his presence as solid as her own determination. She glanced at him and for a moment, their eyes met with a shared understanding. He was afraid as they faced yet another emergency, but there was something else stirring within him, an ember of strength igniting in response to the moment. "Stay available for a second," Emily instructed Jake gently. "I need you to keep an eye out for paramedics." Jake nodded, taking a deep breath, a flicker of courage flashing across his face. It was a tender shift, one that made Emily's heart swell with hope. She checked for other injuries. The atmosphere shifted, the air around them thick with urgency and compassion. Emily could feel the crowd behind them, each person watching, sensing the gravity of the situation, but they were also witnessing something deeper. It wasn't just about saving someone. It was about humanity connecting in moments of crisis. Suddenly, a hand touched her shoulder. Richard had moved closer, determination in his gaze. "What can I do?" he asked, ready to assist. "Get some ice for her ankle," Emily replied without hesitation. "And contact the medical team if they aren't coming already." The tension in the air seemed to crackle again, the crowd moving to facilitate the effort. In that moment, it felt like the burdens of judgment and expectation began to dissipate, leaving space for shared compassion and purpose. As the paramedics arrived moments later, Emily's heart lightened a little, knowing they would be safe soon. But amid the flurry of activity, another crash echoed through the hall, this time even closer, a heavy thud that silenced everything momentarily. "What was that?" Jake whispered, panic flooding his voice again. Emily's heart raced. Just as they were starting to feel a glimmer of hope, darkness threatened once more. What was happening now? She turned, fear and determination battling inside her as she prepared for whatever lay ahead. Would this be the moment that finally shattered their newfound bond? Or maybe it would intensify the connection they were starting to forge. The tension was palpable. One question loomed in her mind. What if the storm they faced had barely begun? Emily's sharp intake of breath echoed in her ears, her instincts on high alert. She shifted her gaze from the injured girl to the source of the sound, trying to gauge the scene in the ballroom. An uneasy quiet had settled, like the moment before a thunderstorm, where the air felt electric with what was to come. Jake's grip on her hand tightened, his knuckles going white. "Mom, should we check it out?" His voice quivered, brimming with uncertainty. Emily hesitated, her heart pounding in her chest. "Yes, but we need to be careful." She turned back to the girl on the floor. "Stay with her, Jake. I'll be right back." She hoped her words would reassure him, but fear flickered in his eyes. With a swift determination, she pushed her way through the crowd, her mind racing. In that moment, it wasn't just about the chaos around her. It felt personal. Too many events had unfolded that night, each more unsettling than the last. She needed answers, and sooner rather than later. As she moved closer to the sound, she could see it was coming from the bar area where a table lay overturned, glasses shattered like crystal snowflakes on the floor. The bartender, a young man, was trying to lift a heavy piece of furniture back into place, but the strain on his face told a different story. It wasn't just a bump or a spill. Something was wrong. "Hey, are you okay?" Emily called out, her concern spiking. He looked up, his expression a mix of relief and frustration. "It's not me. I think someone collapsed back here." Her heart raced again as the words hung heavy in the air. She darted forward, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The crowd behind her shifted restlessly, peering over shoulders, whispering to one another like ripples in water. When Emily reached the bar, she found a man lying on the ground, pale as the moonlight. His suit was crumpled, and a slight tremor ran through his body. She crouched beside him, instinctively feeling for a pulse, trying to hide the panic bubbling up inside her. "Sir, can you hear me? What's your name?" she asked, voice steady despite the quickening of her breath. After a taut moment, his eyes fluttered open, revealing a flash of confusion. He stammered, blinking as more people converged. "I just felt dizzy," someone gasped behind her, and Emily turned to see a woman pale as paper. "I know him. That's Mr. Hargrove. He is the guest of honor." Her mind raced with the implications. The man was not only someone of importance, He was also tied to everything happening that night: the anticipation, the admiration, the pressure. They had been here to celebrate him. And now chaos had warped that celebration into a spectacle of urgency. His breathing sounds shallow. Another voice cried. "That's what happens when you don't hydrate," someone muttered, causing Emily's ire to rise. "Focus," she snapped, her voice booming above the frenzy. "We need to help him sit up. He could be having a panic attack." As the crowd hesitated for just a moment, surprised by her command, Jake's small voice broke through. "Mom, what can I do?" She turned, meeting his wide eyes. He was ready, her brave boy, her anchor. "I need you to help me keep him calm. Just talk to him, tell him he is safe." Jake nodded, stepping forward, his voice steadying as he spoke to the man. "Mr. Hargrove, you're all right. Just breathe with me, in and out." Stifling her fear, Emily assisted the man into a sitting position, while keeping a close watch on the rest of the crowd. They were all witnessing something raw and vulnerable. Their shared breaths mingling with uncertainty. Dawned on Emily. Then this was not just another emergency. This was a moment, a crossroads for everyone present. As she looked into the eyes of the crowd, she felt a tingle of something powerful. Their humanity was colliding, and in it, she sensed the seeds of pity, admiration, and a fervent desire to connect, to know and be known. But just as she felt hope flickering to life again, another crash echoed from somewhere in the deepening darkness of the ballroom. It was sharper, more urgent. What now? She thought, dread curling through her stomach. Her eyes narrowed with determination. They had faced chaos before, but tonight, it felt as though they were just scratching the surface of something much larger. With a single date on the calendar, everything was on the line. What lay ahead for them was uncertain, but together they could navigate through it all if only they could keep moving forward. Would they uncover the deeper truth hidden behind the night? What other secrets awaited them in the shadows? Emily's heart raced, the sound of the crash striking like a drumbeat in her ears. She locked eyes with Jake, who was still crouching beside Mr. Hargrove, his sweet face drawn tight with concern. She felt a momentary wave of guilt. He shouldn't have to witness a night like this. The weight of the crowd's anxiety hung heavy, a shared breath taut with anticipation. "Stay with him," she urged Jake as she pushed through the cluster of onlookers, her determination flaring bright. The ballroom loomed ahead, its lights dimming even as chaos encircled her. A thick tension whipped through the air like a physical force, binding everyone together in an unspoken panic. As she skidded to a halt, she found the source: a pair of tables toppled in a corner, chairs scattered like forgotten toys. And in the center of it all stood a woman, her arms flailing, voice rising in alarm. Someone call for help. Now. It shattered the wary moment of uncertainty. Her heart dropped seeing the frantic face of a server, clearly distressed at the sudden commotion. "Are you okay?" Emily shouted, rushing forward. "Jim!" the woman cried, waving her hands. "He hit his head. He is not moving." That was all Emily needed. She dashed toward the man sprawled on the floor, the soft splash of red wine pooling beneath him making her stomach churn. It was a vivid contrast to the elegant surroundings, the beauty suddenly marred by crude reality. "Jim, can you hear me?" She knelt beside him, heart hammering as she felt for a pulse. It thrummed, weak yet present. Relief jolted through her like electricity. "Stay with me. Help is on the way." A nearby guest fumbled for his phone, ready to dial, while murmurs rippled through the crowd, cloaking the room in a blanket of worry. The woman next to Emily tried to help him sit up, but Emily waved her away. "No, don't move him. It could make it worse." Pulling stress sent her thoughts spiraling. She couldn't let fear take charge. She needed to anchor herself and everyone else, her usual calm unraveling into focus. Suddenly, she felt Jake's small hand clasping her shoulder. His grip was steady. He exuded an unshakable sincerity, reminding her that they were in this together. "What can I do now, Mom?" he whispered, voice barely above the noise. "Just be here with me," she murmured, unable to meet his gaze. It was the truth: she needed him as much as anyone else. "Just keep talking to Mr. Hargrove. Tell him what's happening. That help is coming." Jake's voice cut through the din, measured and soothing. "Mr. Hargrove, just take deep breaths like we practiced." Emily's focus narrowed back to the fallen man. She inspected his wounds quietly, noting the inches-long gash curving across his forehead. The sight of blood stirred a deep-rooted instinct in her. Yet she pushed it down. "Please, Jim, just hold on. Keep breathing." In that moment the room transformed. Time suspended as everything came to a standstill except for those who needed to act. People whispered, their faces warped in fear, disbelief painting them like specters in a surreal painting as she cradled Jim's head. The heartbeat of the crowd pulsed around her, each breath weaving into a delicate tapestry of desperate hope. But she couldn't shake the feeling that the night held more secrets, that the unfolding nightmare was just a prelude to something more sinister. Then, from across the hall, she caught a glimpse of Mr. Hargrove slowly rising, supported by two other guests. His face was pale but composed. He looked past Emily, gaze locked on the chaos unfurling at the bar. "Stop!" he shouted, commanding attention like a tidal wave shifting the current. "You have to listen to me. There's something you all need to know, it's important." Emily's heart dropped. What did he mean? What truth lay beneath the surface of this glittering celebration? As the eyes of the crowd turned toward the man who had been on the floor, an unsettling tension hung heavy in the air. In that moment, a fresh wave of uncertainty washed over them all. What revelation would upend everything, turning their lives upside down? The night was far from over, and new cracks in the facade were about to be laid bare. Emily struggled to hear Mr. Hargrove's voice cut through the noise, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. The panic emanating from the group around her created an atmosphere she could almost touch, a mix of fear and confusion that suffocated the air. Yet here was Mr. Hargrove, gathering strength from somewhere deep inside him. "Mr. Hargrove, please, what is it?" Emily called out, her tone laced with urgency. She felt the crowd's unease shift. Everyone was leaning in closer, straining to listen with a deep, shaky breath. Mr. Hargrove steadied himself. "You don't understand," his voice faltered, fighting through the haze of pain. "I wasn't just celebrating tonight, the crash was deliberate." Gasps moved through the crowd like wildfire. Emily's stomach twisted. "What do you mean, deliberate?" She needed clarity, a lifeline in the midst of chaos. The drinks, the deliveries, it was all planned. He clenched his jaw as if each word took every ounce of his strength. Something was put in the drinks to hurt people. Jim wasn't the only target. Emily's heart plunged. What kind of monster would do this? She studied the faces surrounding her: confusion, fear, disbelief. Everyone had come to this party to celebrate, yet now they stood at the edge of something dark and terrifying. "Call the police!" shouted someone in the crowd. A flurry of hands reached for phones, their screen lights flickering like stars in a darkening sky. Emily could barely think. She turned back to Jim, whose face was pale. "Hold on, please, help is coming." Her voice had reached a frantic pitch, desperate to anchor him, desperate to keep him alive. Jake, ever steadfast, squeezed her arm tighter. "Mom, what if it's true? What if someone wanted to harm us?" She glanced at him, taking a moment to see the worry etched on his young face. "I won't let anything happen to you, I promise." But even as she spoke, doubt flickered through her. What could she guarantee in a moment like this? "Everyone needs to evacuate," Mr. Hargrove gasped, and a murmur of panic rippled through the crowd. "Stay calm," someone shouted, but the tension was palpable. A palpable vibrating string about to snap. They didn't just need to claim an exit, they needed to get to safety. Emily's eyes darted around the room, attempting to map out an escape plan amid the chaos. She turned to Jake, fighting back tears. "We need to get out. Now." The intense energy surged as people began to push toward the exits. Emily and Jake were swept along with the current, guided by instinct. Each step felt like a weight, the thoughts of what could happen swirling in her mind. She couldn't be afraid, not now. But as they neared the door, chaos erupted. A loud crash sounded from the bar area and people screamed. Emily's heart raced. "Mom, what's happening?" Jake's innocent plea cut deep. "I don't know, honey, just hold on tight." The chaos intensified, the crowd jostling like a wave of panic. As they finally burst through the door into the open air, the reality of the situation hit her hard. Police cruisers pulled up, lights flashing, officers pouring out like a herd of rams. Yet, even outside, the unsettling sensation hadn't faded. Emily turned back, just in time to see Mr. Hargrove being supported out, his face twisted in pain. But his eyes were locked on hers, as if he were trying to tell her something important, something vital. Mom, let us go. Jake pulled at her sleeve, urgency tinging his voice. She hesitated, a bead of sweat tracing down her back. What had he wanted to say? And why did she have a nagging feeling that they weren't out of danger yet? With one last glance at Mr. Hargrove, Emily knew they had to move. Something bigger was at play, something dark lurking beneath the surface of that joyous celebration. As they raced toward the waiting officers in safety, a single thought echoed in her mind. What had really happened that night and who would be next? The night air felt heavy with dread as Emily and Jake stumbled into the sea of flashing blue and red lights. The sounds of sirens wailed in the distance but felt strangely muted against the backdrop of adrenaline coursing through her veins. Emily gripped Jake's hand tightly, fighting the urge to look back despite the mounting tension. Over here, a police officer shouted, waving them toward a group of frightened partygoers now wrapped in blankets, waiting for answers. Emily felt a rush of relief at seeing uniformed officers. They were supposed to provide safety. But even as she moved forward, a chill ran down her spine. The weight of Mr. Hargrove's words clung to her, a ghost in her mind, deliberate, targeted. Mom, I feel scared, Jake muttered, his voice trembling slightly. Me too, baby, she replied, kneeling to his level. She brushed a lock of hair from his forehead and forced a reassuring smile. But we're safe now. The police will figure everything out. Just then, another crash echoed from within the building, and the crowd recoiled. Eyes widened and gasps filled the air, a palpable wave of fear washing over everyone again. Emily's heart raced. What was that? Stay close, she urged Jake, pulling him into her side as they inched toward the line of officers. A knot formed in her stomach as the thought spiraled. What if they weren't safe? What if the worst was yet to come? Suddenly, an officer pushed through the throng of people. Everyone, we need to keep moving. We can't hold this area for long. Emily felt the tension in the air as disbelief morphed into panic again. Where do we go? She yelled over the noise. Follow my lead. We're moving to a secure area. The officer beckoned, his face serious. Just as they began to move, Emily's phone buzzed in her pocket. She fished it out, heart pounding, and glanced at the screen. A message from an unknown number flashed ominously. You shouldn't have left. It's not over yet. She dropped the phone in shock as shockwaves of fear rippled through her. Every nerve ending in her body screamed for her to take action, to protect her son. She grabbed Jake's shoulders, forcing him to look her in the eyes. Listen to me, Jake. I need you to stay close no matter what. We're going to find Dad, okay? We can't leave without him. But Mom, what about no buts? She interjected, raising her voice just enough to convey urgency. We can't stay here. Jake nodded and they fell into step again with the group. As they moved into the illuminated parking lot, Emily scanned the crowd. Her chest constricted as she spotted Mr. Hargrove being loaded into an ambulance, still trying to catch her gaze. Was he trying to warn them again? Mom, the police. Jake's voice pulled her out of her reverie. Right, let us get answers, she whispered, confidence tapping into her resolve as they marched toward the nearest officer. Excuse me, what's going on here? The officer smiled weakly but shook his head, worry etched across his features. I can't disclose much, but we need everyone to stay calm and cooperate. As his voice faded, a single thought pierced through the haze of chaos. What had they walked into? Just as she began to formulate a plan, another shriek erupted from the direction of the building. Her heart surged and her instincts kicked in. Jake, follow me, Emily urged, and they dashed toward the sound without hesitation. Why are we going back? Jake wheezed, trying to keep up. Because we can't leave anyone behind, Emily said fiercely, knowing she had to confront whatever darkness awaited them. But the deeper they pushed into the night, the more she sensed they weren't alone. The shadows seemed to hold secrets, and Emily was determined to uncover them. With every step, she felt a strange energy pulling her forward, like an unresolved mystery calling her name. In that moment, she was sure of one thing: they were in more danger than they had ever imagined, and time was running out. What would they discover as they plunged back into the unknown lurking in the shadows? Emily's heart raced as she and Jake approached the building, the chaotic sounds of the party still ringing in her ears. The darkness loomed ahead, swallowing any light that struggled to escape. She could feel the fear tightening in her chest, a physical weight that made it harder to breathe. But Jake's hand in hers felt warm and steady, a reminder that there was something worth fighting for. The scream that pierced through the night was chilling. It wasn't just terror. It held desperation, a rawness that shook Emily to her core. "Stay close," she shouted again, feeling a sense of urgency push her forward. The crowd inside had thinned, and as they neared the entrance, Emily scanned the area for any sign of help. Panic clawed at her thoughts. What if they were too late? They slipped through a broken door that hung off its hinges, sending a shudder of unease through Emily. The faint glow of emergency lights flickered above, creating a surreal environment where shadows danced and concealed potential dangers. She glanced at Jake, his eyes wide with a mix of curiosity and fear. "Mom, are we supposed to be in here? I know it's scary, but we need to check." Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness, staggering toward them. Emily's breath hitched. "Who is it?" As the figure stepped into the light, she recognized the pale face of one of the party's organizers. "Please help," he gasped, collapsing against the wall. Blood seeped through his shirt, staining it a dark crimson. "Jake, stay back," Emily urged, instinctively stepping forward. "What happened?" It's not safe," he stammered, struggling to speak. Someone. A loud crash erupted from the back of the building, shaking Emily to her bones. She turned her head sharply, searching the shadows behind them. "What are you saying?" Her voice trembled with fear. The organizer gripped her arm, his fingers cold and clammy. "They're after me. I heard them talking about you. They know you're here." Her instincts flared, and anger surged within her. "Why would they care about us? We just want to find my husband." Jake clutched her side. "Mom, we should go." "Not without knowing what's happening," Emily snapped, turning back to the man. "Who are they? Why should we be worried?" "Because it's all about the money," he managed to whisper before a series of footsteps thundered down the hallway. The sound was almost rhythmic, like a countdown. "We have to go. Now," she yelled, pulling Jake toward the exit. The organizer fell silent as they pushed past him, the dread now overwhelming any rational thought. As they burst into the parking lot, Emily glanced around. The night felt heavy still, the air charged with tension. Common hope evaporated, replaced by confusion and fear. "Where is Dad?" Jake cried out, his voice breaking. "I don't know, honey." She felt a surge of emotion, a wave crashing instead of a calm. She had to stay strong, but she couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. "We have to find him." Just then a flicker of movement caught her eye. There, among the withdrawing crowd, was a familiar silhouette rushing toward them. Emily squinted, hope blossoming in her chest. "Dad?" But all at once, the ground shook as something she couldn't tell what was launched from inside the building. In sheer reaction, she threw herself and Jake to the ground, protecting him with her body. "What is happening?" he screamed, panic rising in his voice. Emily's heart raced, and in that moment of chaos, she wondered if they had walked straight into a nightmare. Just as the world tilted around her, a figure lunged from the building, shadowy and quick. With a split-second decision, she knew their fates might depend on this stranger's next move. Were they about to discover the truth, or had they just stepped into something far more dangerous than they ever imagined? Emily felt the world tilt, a jagged heartbeat echoing in her ears as she lay protectively over Jake on the cold ground. The explosion that rippled from the building had sent shockwaves through the air, chaos reigniting in a terrifying surge. She quickly raised her head, scanning the scene for danger, for her husband, for any sign that they were going to be okay. Jake's hand trembled in hers, a lifeline amidst this whirlwind of uncertainty. "Mom, what's happening?" His voice was small, frightened, a stark contrast to the brave boy she'd known. She turned to him, anxiety scrunching her heart. "I don't know, but we need to stay close." Everything around them felt electric, charged with the threat of what was yet to come. As they hurriedly scrambled back to their feet, another figure emerged from the smoke and chaos. Richard. He weaved through the crowd, his presence somehow grounding Emily amidst the panic. Relief washed over her, even as dread clung to the edges of her thoughts. "Emily," he called out, urgency in his voice. "We need to get away from here." "What happened?" she shouted, breathless. Richard's gaze was intense, eyes darting around like a hawk. "I'll explain on the way." A group set this up to distract from their real plan, something far worse. Before she could process his words, another crash segmented the air, the night fracturing deeper into chaos. Richard grabbed her by the arm, pulling her back toward safety as they sprinted toward the parking lot's edge. Emily's mind raced. With every step, a new question burrowed into her thoughts. How did they become targets? What was the real motive? Mom, where's Dad? Jake called, panic rising in his voice like a tide. It was a fear she shared, a sinking dread that frayed her nerves. We're going to find him, Jake, I promise. But they were running out of time. As they reached the edge of the parking lot, they turned to find a small group of people huddled near a police cruiser. Sweat tinged Richard's brow as he looked at Emily, determination hardening his features. We must keep going. Where? She searched the depths of his eyes, willing him to say something reassuring, but only desperation flickered back at her. Toward the trees he pointed, urgency crackling like lightning between them. It's south, the only place we can regroup safely. Without hesitation, driven by instinct and hope, they ran toward the tree line on the outskirts of the parking lot where the shadows beckoned them to safety, yet still felt dangerously alive. Reaching the fringes of the trees, they paused to catch their breath. Emily's heart hammered as she turned one last time to look back. Everything had devolved into chaos. The sirens rang louder, but this time they felt more protective. Stay alert, Richard whispered fiercely. Do you hear that? They all went silent. No more shouts, no more crashes. The stillness was loud, and the trees swayed like they were whispering secrets among themselves. Time stretched infinitely in the dark. What do we do now? Jake asked, looking up at her with wide eyes, anticipating answers she didn't have. We can't stay here forever, Emily said, her voice trembling. We need to find Dad, but we must be smart about it. We might be able to use the phone not here. Richard cut in, glancing back towards the faint glow of lights from the venue. They're watching. We need to find him and everyone else in safety first. And suddenly a realization soaked into Emily's veins. A tether of hope rekindled amidst the destruction. They weren't just fleeing, they could reestablish a network, a safety web of their own. With newfound courage, she took Jake by the shoulder, giving him a squeeze to anchor them in this moment. It's okay, we're going to find him. Together. Richard nodded, his resolve lighting the path ahead. Let us head deeper into the woods. I know a trail we can use. As they slipped into the shadows of the trees, Emily felt the heartbeat of her family surge stronger with every step. Gone was the glamorous event filled with confusion and judgment. Here lay their true fight, not just for survival but for the threads that held them together. A community forged by courage. The futility of societal opinions melted away, and she realized their bond was the strongest tool they had. Moments turned into an eternity as they navigated through the underbrush. Suddenly, the sounds of muffled cries broke through like sharp shards of glass. Jake clutched her tightly, pulling her to a halt. What was that? Emily strained to listen. It's coming from that direction. She pointed, her instincts igniting again with adrenaline. Let us check it out. Stay close. And as they moved cautiously forward, she knew they were heading into the heart of something that demanded their bravery, everything they stood for. But they were no longer just a mother and her son. Now they were a force to be reckoned with. A family intertwined in faith and purpose amid uncertainty. The path ahead flickered between light and dark, hope and fear. But together, stepping forward, they push against the shadows, unwavering and strong. Mom, I'm scared, Jake voiced, his small hand trembling against hers. Emily took a deep breath, determination flooding her heart. I get it, but remember what you said earlier? We can do this together and we will find Dad. No one gets left behind. That declaration thundered in her heart, solidifying the resolve that coursed through her veins. And with a fierce clarity, they moved forward into the night, ready to face whatever lay ahead. And just as they felt the tangle of confusion begin to untwist, a light pierced through the darkness, a beacon of safety or the path to their next trap. But whatever it was, they weren't alone in this fight. They would uncover the truth and perhaps find their way back to each other, stronger than ever before. The journey was far from over, and the rest lay in the shadows, waiting almost teasingly for them to uncover it. Now was the moment to fight back with everything they had, for every second mattered, and hope thrived on the horizon. Together they would rise because family was everything. Before you go, this is your moment to connect with our ongoing story. Click that subscribe button now, and don't miss out on the next thrilling chapters. You need to subscribe today. If this story inspired you, leave a like to show your support. It truly feeds our mission to share powerful narratives. We want to hear from you. Comment your feelings about this ending, and what you think is coming next. And share this unbelievable journey with at least 5 friends who need to experience this transformation now. You have the power to spread the word. Don't wait not even one more second.